Tamron 1750 f4 DI III VXD is the hero of our day, and we are going to talk about this universal soldier today, specifically if it's really worth buying and if it's a really universal tool despite its shortcomings that we will be talking about very soon. However, I have to say that I'm pretty sentimental about this kind of lens because one of my favorite lenses to travel with that I made amazing photos with, specifically I think I took like the most popular picture of Nairobi ever on the internet with its, let's say, predecessor, you know what I mean? It was Canon 17-40. It was my favorite travel lens. L lens, very unsharp in the corners with lots of flaws, still very good lens to use if you're into travel photography. So this one to me is kind of next generation of this same idea. Universal, lightweight, and very, very good to use. However, let's look at some specific categories. Now, first, build quality. Build quality is typical for Tamron. It's plastic, but don't be afraid. It's nothing like, you know, low quality plastic. It's high quality. Everything works very good. Like the you know, focus like ring or focus ring or zoom ring, everything works flawlessly. You have one programmable button and you have USB-C here to update firmware. You have like water sealing gasket here on the back. The only thing that I would warn you is that those internal optical elements travel quite deep to the inside of the tube here, and that can cause some problems if dirt comes in. So keep this lens clean. However, weather sealed should be fine. Just have this in mind. Nothing to complain about when it comes to build quality, just a standard Tamron zoom lens. However, let's talk about optical quality, which is to me the most important category here. And well, there's some navigating when it comes to this lens, and you will see very soon. So, sharpness. In the middle, 17 millimeters, pretty sharp, not razor sharp, but sharp, completely sharp enough. You can see a significant drop of sharpness in the corners on 17, and a lot of vignetting, which is not that great, but still it's nothing, it's not a tragedy. Like the lens that I mentioned, like Canon L lens 17-40, when opened like to f4, in the corners at 17 was super sharp. It was almost impossible to see what's there in the corner. Here it's just a drop of sharpness, so nothing dramatic. You can improve that. However, there's a rule for this lens that you will see throughout all the tests I made, that f8 is the f-stop for this lens, that this lens starts to shine. So when stopped down, of course, the sharpness improves. At f8, it's practically perfect. At 50, generally this lens is softer and presents, to my surprise, more optical problems. However, in the middle, it's decently sharp, nothing you know, like dramatic there, but you have to know that it's not razor sharp there. However, stop down a little, the sharpness comes back, and at f8 it is perfect. In the corners there's a drop of sharpness at f4, but nothing dramatic there, and the sharpness is, to me, enough when it comes to 50 millimeters, and for portrait work still you can use it, which we will talk about just in a moment. However, first let's talk about vignetting and distortion. So vignetting is pretty huge on 17 millimeters at f.4, and so as distortion. Distortion is like, it's a monster distortion, and you have a little bit of a mustache effect there on the bottom and on the top. However, I don't know how like Tamron achieved that. However, the correction profile in Lightroom pretty much fixes it very well. I'm like surprised, and the mustache is pretty much gone. So, but for video work, still the distortion effect is a big deal. For photographers, not necessarily. However, I would not recommend this lens as a universal soldier. For interior photographers, you could, it's not a bad deal when applied correction profile, but you may want to consider, for example, on Sony system 16-35, which works, I gotta say, better on 16 and 17 millimeters. I mean, on 17 millimeters, because there's no 16 here. So let's go to portrait work. Now, As you can see, like when zoomed in to 50 at f.4, it gives a decent autofocus like look. There's a clear separation between the model and the background, and the sharpness and the amount of detail on my old trusted A7 Mark III is good enough to me. And the sharpness is enough that if you want more of sharpness, to sharpen it in post-production. So if it would be like too soft, there's always a problem to sharpen and it doesn't look good. Here, you can sharpen a little bit and it's spot on. When it comes to 17 millimeters, of course, you don't do a lot of portraits with that, but you can do like environmental portrait, like you can see me standing in front of the, you know, van, like classic van in like old beat up Portuguese neighborhood, so rundown Portuguese neighborhood. So it gives a little bit of creativity options there, so good to have it. However, when working against harsh light, this lens can have some can introduce some visual mess. So always remember to use the sunshade on the front of it, because like you can see for yourself that there's some visual mess and that doesn't look too good. However, talking about that, when testing it against harsh light, it didn't work, it didn't perform that bad. In my personal opinion, 17 is more like displays more of a flare than 50 millimeters, but you can see for yourself that there's not much of a visual mess when I'm like playing around against harsh light of southern Portugal. So not bad at all. Let's talk about and as we are talking about some optical qualities here, now let's talk about the stars. And stars on this lens are beautiful, are big, are bold, and clean. You can see for yourself that you can really improve your photos or give an extra taste to your photos when stopping it down to f11, for example, when the stars look just perfect. And that's great because some of the zoom lenses I tested recently had like very bad looking stars. This one is very good. When talking about optical qualities, let's talk about bokeh, or like, you know, the unsharp parts of the picture. And again, despite the flaws of big barrel like distortion and huge vignetting and a little bit of softness here and there, the bokeh, on the other hand, looks very good. It's very round, very clean, no cat effect, no cat eye effect, a little bit in the corner, but first of all, and most importantly, no onion ring effect. So it is a decent bokeh like for that lens. Now let's talk about the macro functionalities of this lens. Macro, like, you know, like how close-up photography, let's say. Sorry, my bad English. So when you close up at 17 millimeters, it is a tad soft on at f4, same for 50 millimeters, and again, like at 50 millimeters, this lens performs a little worse, so there's a little bit of softness when it comes to close-up, but stop down to f8, as you can see, this like ceramic fish that I found on in the old town of Faro is razor sharp. It's just perfect, and you can really come close to the object. If you have enough light, you can just stop it down and you have it, you nailed it. So you have to remember that at f4 it is a tad soft, but still nothing dramatic, and you can sharpen in post-production and it should look fine. Now let's talk about another category here when it comes to more video work and photo work, like let's do the bridge. So this is no, before we move there, chromatic aberration. This is very important. I always forget to mention, but chromatic aberration on this lens is pretty well controlled. Both on 17 and 50 millimeters, you can see a little bit of orange fringing, but maybe a little bit of bluish, more like toward the upper part of the screen. Sorry, of the picture, but still, chromatic aberration is very well controlled, so nothing to complain about here. Now let's talk about the zoom range. Zoom range is super universal. As you can see, I'm playing with the zoom range here to show you that you can go really wide on 17 and pretty nice close-up on 50 millimeters, so that's a good news. For videographers, however, something that is very difficult to correct is the barrel distortion and vignette. So as you can see, the vignette is there and barrel distortion is pretty hard. However, when you zoom in anything above 20, that barrel distortion is still visible but not distracting, and on 24 it disappears. So something to remember if you are going to use this for video work. However, even if you're a vlogger at 17, this barrel distortion doesn't have to do, you know, like, doesn't have to distract that much. It's still okay to use. However, something to keep in mind. Now, the category that interests both videographers and photographers is autofocus. So generally, of course, autofocus is dependent mainly on your camera, but some technical solutions like the motor in the lens can either like cooperate nicely or cooperate badly and hunt for the hunt for the sharpness. Here, no hunt. The cooperation with autofocus system, specifically I tested on A7 Mark III, which is not the newest one, to see how it copes with a little older autofocus system, not like this A7IV that is recording the video right now. It is cooperating very well. So both touch autofocus works perfect. It focuses quickly and without hunting between objects. And same when it comes to face detection. My wife is jumping like crazy there. She's used to that and no problem at all. It finds her face without any issues on both 17mm, 50mm. So very good cooperation with autofocus. Again, like let's stick to video capabilities and let's talk about focus breathing. And again, this is a good news here that focus breathing is practically non-existent. There's a little bit of it visible on 17mm, on 50mm practically it's very difficult to see if there's any focus breathing there. So, as we are looking at this lens right now, and we see that it is not flawless, definitely not flawless. So it takes some navigating between the, some of the flaws of this lens. However, as you can see for yourself on the sample photos that I took, like some street photography in the city I live in, which is Faro, South Portugal, Algarve. And this lens is really great for creative work. When traveling, when doing street photography, there's a lot of options it gives you. You can change the perspective totally between 17mm or 50mm. You can apply this correction profile that is applied on those sample photos, and those sample photos, in opposite to the previous ones, are processed, and you can see for yourself, but nothing heavy, like just one preset and just a correction profile applied. That's it, nothing more. And the distortion doesn't hurt that much anymore. There's a lot of creative options here. You can like really enjoy walking with it. The other thing is that it's weather sealed, so you can the rain can pour on it a little bit, as it happened to me, and there was no problem at all with this lens. It is lightweight, it is not that expensive, very universal. So as far as you know about the flaws it has and you can avoid them, then you are good to go. Specifically that a lot of travel photographers work in very bright sunlight, and you will stop it down either way to f8, f9, f11, and all the optical flaws will disappear, besides of course the barrel distortion, which as you can see can be corrected. So if you ask me if I recommend this lens for travel photographers, yes, definitely I do. Keep in mind the flaws and you should be good to go. I hope you guys enjoyed this, this short test of this lens. And if you did, please support me with thumbs up, support me with subscribes, and I see you guys in the next one.